Alright guys, today I'm going to show you how I prune my tomato plants. This is a tomato plant, and the first thing you do, go to the bottom of the plant, the very bottom leaf, and that's a sucker there in the, they call it the armpit of the branch there. So once you have your leaves coming off, you have this little thing that comes in between the two. It starts growing up. That's called a sucker, and you want to get rid of that right away. Now I usually take off the bottom whole leaf right here too, because the lower it is to the ground, the more susceptible it is to disease. So if you could see there, you cut it a little bit away from the stem because that will allow it to scab over and it won't try to regrow in the future. Now all of our growth is focused towards the top of the plant instead of down here. And here's another one. As you can see, I'm cutting away just a little bit from the stem. So you don't want to be right up directly against that stem. Otherwise you're going to get, it won't scab over and it will try to regrow again. Now here, the second leaf up, I'm not going to cut the whole thing, just the sucker there. You see that? So in this particular tomato bed, I have 8 different tomato plants planted. And so I'm taking off the bottom branch on each one. And you can see there, I cut a little close, but we'll see what happens. Like I said, you want to cut it a little farther away from the stem than I just did there. And then I'm just taking off the bottom branch and then any suckers I see above that. Now, not all the way up to the top. Look at this though. Sometimes it'll grow straight out of the ground. If you let that grow, it'll grow an entire new tomato plant basically side by side to this one. So I definitely want to get rid of that. I got rid of the bottom one there again. And then if you look here, you still have 1, 2 suckers. And there's actually one on the next branch up too. So I'm going to take all 3 of those off. And again, so now this is focusing, it allows the roots to develop more underneath, which is good. And it's also going to allow the top growth to happen as well, which will focus more on the fruit rather than just growing more leaves. Alright, so that takes care of that bed, and on to the next one. I got 4 different plants in this bed here. And I'm going to take off the sucker there. And then on the bottom leaf, which you can't really see here, let me try to get around for you. Sorry, it's really hard to do this with one hand, but there you go. Take off the bottom branch. And the reason I'm doing this, if it's too close to the soil, you're going to have issues. If those leaves touch the ground, especially when it rains, it will make it more heavy. They can touch the ground and or that soil, which causes all kinds of disease or blight. Those kinds of things. You'll get yellow in the leaves. It's just not good for it. So you don't want anything to touch the ground on your leaves. And then I'm going to take off the suckers here in all the armpits. These are all called armpits again, if you remember. Basically an armpit is the area between the stem, the main stem, and then the branch with the leaves. And then you got your sucker that comes out kind of an upward angle. You want to get rid of the sucker because what it does, it tries to reproduce an entire new tomato plant. And in theory that's good actually, because it's reproducing more tomatoes. But what I do is I take off on the lower end of this plant, I'm going to take off the suckers because right now I'm more worried about the root development and the top growth, which would focus on more fruit. Okay, does that make sense? You get rid of the suckers on the bottom. We're not going to do this the entire season. This is just at the beginning. Take off those suckers, and then I'll take off the most bottom leaf so that it doesn't touch the ground. And there you go. And remember again, away from the stem so it scabs over. On to the last bed. I planted 8 different tomatoes in this bed. And you can see here, look at that. It's grown 2 different ones out of the bottom here. So we'll get rid of both of those because otherwise you'd have 3 growing side by side. And we just don't have enough soil to promote that much energy to the plant. There's one there. Take that one off. And then you got the sucker in between there, as you can see. And when you catch them early enough, you can actually just get it with your hand there. It's so small that you can pinch it right off like that, which I like. Because it's kind of hard, I mean, to get these, the little tool in there, it's kind of tough to work it. It's much easier, just put your hand in there, pinch it right off, you're good to go. If that makes sense. If you're actually clipping the bottom branch like we do, you're going to want to use clippers because I've tried to actually pinch the entire branch off and what happens, it will start to tear. It will actually rip. So I always want to take the clippers for the bottom leaf and I'll actually clip those. But if it's not too close, again, you don't have to take off the bottom leaf if you don't want to. The suckers are what's most important. The reason they call them suckers because they're like sucking the life out of the plant. They're taking again, it's taking away the energy to reproduce more roots, because you know you need more roots to get the structure. In the future, it's going to grow nice and big and strong. You don't want this thing toppling over in the wind or whatever, or if it gets heavy laid down with tomatoes, right? So we're actually pulling out the we're promoting the roots to grow. And honestly, I just want to show you this video, show you how easy this is. It's not hard. It's a little tedious because you got to go in there and find each little spot and pinch it off. It's even harder when you're trying to hold a camera while you do it, but it's well worth it. You are adding so much more strength to your tomato. It's not going to be overgrown, and you're just going to be able to get more. Now, I can't say you're going to get more tomatoes necessarily. You'll get better tomatoes, healthier tomatoes. You're going to get more airflow in there, and you want airflow. You want less leaves. You don't want no leaves, you want less leaves. You want to prune and trim up your tomato plant. Again, do the work at the beginning and it will pay off in the future. So look how easy this is. I'm just pinching it with my fingers. If you let this overgrow, you're going to be sitting there pinching off all this basically wasted energy that the plant put towards the tomato plant, and it just went to waste, right? Now I'm actually pulling it out and allowing it to focus on the places that matter. So it is important at first to really do this. Down the road, hey, you just let those tomatoes grow and it's great. I'm telling you, do the work at the beginning. It is well worth it. You can let it go down the road if you want, but this is going to give you better tomatoes if you prune it up front. So just pinch those off, catch them early. You'll be amazed how fast these things grow. If you haven't done this, you'll be so amazed. That little tiny thing I'm pinching off right here, it grows like in 2 days time. It will be as big as one of those branches. So look there, guys. I just did 20 different tomato plants on this video while you watched. If you watched this long, hey, congratulations and thank you. And give this video a thumbs up if you like it, if you think it has valuable information. I love showing the garden and what I do and the little tips and tricks I've learned over the years. This is my 3rd year doing it, so I'm not a pro by any means.